Hey everyone, this is D, Movieman, fellow cinephile, popcorn addict, and emerging film critic. Coming to you with reliable recaps, reviews, and reactions. If you're seeing this, then that means you have likely, hopefully, have seen one or more of my two recent videos, one for my top 10 favorite movies of 2024, as well as my top 10 most disappointing films of 2024. And since I still had some footage left over and I was initially going to share my honorable mentions, I figured why not go ahead and highlight the additional films that I thought were noteworthy for all the right reasons, as well as some additional entries that just sucked. So without further ado, let's get into it. So, for starters, we will jump into my honorable mentions. Deadpool and Wolverine, directed by Sean Levy. I will say that despite the story being a little messy and delving into some of that multiverse, cameos, Easter eggs, all that kind of stuff, this really was an enjoyable experience. And I think what made me appreciate it more than I would have, besides the always enjoyable Hugh Jackman and seeing these variants of Wolverine, is the fact that this is really finding a way to honor that era of 20th Century Fox and how those films in many ways paved the way for what we see as far as the MCU, especially regarding Blade, because let's be real, Blade saved Marvel Studios, and what we see now would absolutely not be possible without the film Blade and without Wesley Snipes' performance and just all of that. So please don't forget, and I like the fact that the film incorporates that piece as well. It's like, look, don't forget who put you on. All right. So overall, yes, I have to say I really appreciated the film outside of just the silliness and the funny, over the top, violent, shenanigans. It's something that really spoke to that era as far as comic book superheroes and superhero movies. And that's something I really did appreciate. The Book of Clarence, directed by James Samuel. This is one that was a surprise for me. I saw it at a AMC screen unseen, and I really didn't know what to think going in, but I did appreciate the fact that it gave a biblical perspective through the lens of blackness. We always talk about what is and what is not represented when it comes to biblical stories. And so I think that alone was refreshing, but then having an all-star cast and just seeing an aspect of blackness portrayed in this type of story was something I enjoyed as well. And then, listen, Nights Over Egypt, having one of my all-time favorite songs pop up in this film, it was over. So I definitely had to include this one. Kill, directed by Nikhil Nagesh Bhatt. Listen, I have said it plenty of times that I love the foreign film experience. In this case, we have a Hindi language film, and this was a thrill ride from beginning to finish. The violence, the intensity, the twists and turns. I was not prepared, but it's just another example of how, just for the most part, I appreciate my American films, but when it just comes to the foreign film experience, it does not let me down. Please feel free to check out my full review for more of my thoughts. But this one, it was a yes for me. Anora, directed by Sean Baker. Listen, I did not know what to expect from this one. Didn't really know what to make of it. I'm just like, okay, I'll just go and check it out and we'll just see. And getting outside of the more intensely intimate scenes, shall we say, I actually was shocked by how hilarious and wild this was. This probably has one of the silliest, funniest wild goose chases I've seen in a while. Mikey Madison's performance, of course, is everything, but I did not know what to expect. And I do think that although I would have liked to have seen a little bit more development from our main character, that last scene hits hard, and I just think that just what this film ends up being as far as an overall experience was something, again, I really didn't know I needed. Sound of Hope, directed by Joshua Weigel. This is another one I've done a full review for, so please feel free to check that out. But as I said in that review, I just appreciated that this film was willing to take a somewhat different approach to a faith-based story. it felt like it was really delving into the layers of how faith can be challenged and how hope can be challenged and how children and their experiences, what it means for a community to really come together to create a new life for children who have been abused, abandoned, left behind, so to speak, and how even with that, there are challenges in making them a part of one's family, but using and incorporating faith and trust and hope and love, especially, and belief to really impact and change lives. And I just thought that was something that was absolutely beautiful. And as someone who, as I've also said, can sometimes struggle with faith, it's a reminder that, hey, having faith and having belief and really pushing forward in that faith and in that belief can really change not only your life, but the lives of others as well. The Substance, directed by Coralie Farjah. This was a wild one, as I said in my review, which you can also check out. As I said in that review, my eyes were subjected to a lot. Stepping back from the initial, wow, shock of everything. I do think the third act goes a little bit bananas, and I do think some of the substance from The Substance is missing, but I do think Demi Moore and Margot Qualley's performances are excellent. The visuals are stunning, and this was something, just as an overall experience and what it had to say, it was something that totally caught me off guard. And lastly, we have Thelma, directed by Josh Margolin. This is another one that I had the chance to see at a film festival, and I gave my full thoughts in my review, but seeing June Squibb as a 94-year-old action star and first-time lead of a film like this, as well as seeing her chemistry and camaraderie with the late and great Richard Roundtree, and this being his last film, it was something that I just, not only was it quirky and fun and enjoyable, but again, as someone who has obviously lost elders and doesn't have that same experience, it was something just so beautiful about seeing this film and all its quirkiness highlight that, and just understand that there are still experiences and adventures to be had regardless of your age. And so this was one that I loved, especially seeing Josh Margolin's direct inspiration for the main character at the end. This was something that I found to be really special. Up first, Handling the Undead, directed by Thea Wiestendahl. I think this film has its merits, but it always felt like there was something disconnected. And as someone who obviously talked about how much I did appreciate Pet Sematary, this is something I referenced in my Sundance ranking videos, this just felt so bleh in comparison. The concept itself is so interesting. The undead suddenly wake up and they're like, hey, what now? But I think, especially after reading the book for myself, absolutely not. Not a great adaptation. Now, without reading the book, maybe I can say like, okay. And again, I don't think it's a bad film, but it drains all of the dimension and depth and just the uniqueness of what makes that story so surprising. Right? And none of that is here. It is just devoid of emotion. It's just devoid. And a film about handling the undead shouldn't feel so, well, dead. Bad Boys, Ride or Die, directed by Adil and Bilal. You can check out my short about this, but I've always enjoyed the Bad Boys franchise. Martin Lawrence and Will Smith I enjoy and have appreciated from a very young age in multiple projects. But number 4, fourth time's not the charm. Usually they say it about the third time. I really enjoyed the third film. This one was a no for me. It was too silly. It was too goofy. And yes, that's always been the dynamic. But this time I was no. It wasn't for me. It was still great seeing them together. I still think their chemistry is the best part of these films. But this time I was just like, yeah, no. We could have capped it at 3 and it's a wrap on that. Next, we have Venom: The Last Dance, directed by Kelly Marcel. Again, you can check out my full review on this. But I really am frustrated by how idiotic and juvenile and childish the creators have made this character. Like, I understand these films are not great, but at least continue to lean into the fact that Venom is this symbiotic presence, and, you know, his and Eddie's, you know, dynamic is something kind of layered, kind of interesting, kind of leaning into the dark side. But now we've just gone full cheese fest, foolery, shenanigans, just no. And this trilogy, although I don't think this third film is nearly as bad as the second, none of these films were worth the time or the investment. I'll give the first one a little bit of something, but coming down to this trilogy, why? Why? A Quiet Place Day One, directed by Michael Sarnowski. A Quiet Place Day One is not a bad film, especially with dear Lupita Nyong'o, also known as Bae-Pita, who is near and dear, so near and dear to my heart. But outside of her performance, I don't like the fact that this is not day one. This film doesn't really do anything different than the beginning of A Quiet Place Part 2. It's just like, we don't necessarily have to see the full origins of the creatures or whatever, but give us something. This just felt like a retread of the last two films. And for myself, given that I was somewhat excited for this, it just felt like too much of a repeated experience given what we've already seen with the last two. I saw The TV Glow, directed by James Schoenbrun. I did not enjoy this film at all. I think the visuals are top-notch. I think the message I appreciate, but this resonated with me not one bit. Okay? It just, I wanted to connect to it so badly, but I was so irritated by this film. It did nothing. It just felt like all style, attempted substance, and it fell flat completely. No. And lastly, we have Divorce in the Black, directed by Tyler Perry. Look, I didn't even subject myself to this entire film. I saw the opening scene, and that was enough for me. Like, when you get to the point where we're snatching up bodies out of caskets, I'm done. I'm done. The shenanigans, the foolery, the foolishness, the hood boogery of it all. Goodbye. Please.
Go away from me with this. Okay. Go away from me.
So, once again, this is D, Movieman, signing off, and I'll see you with the movie.